Hello, Maria.
Hi, how are you? You okay?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks as well. You look lovely. This is the
You
first one I'm
look
doing
lovely.
live.
I'm extremely excited to talk to you.
Me too. When I visited Pakistan, I missed you. Like, as in, I had arrived and I think you left the country for something, so we couldn't meet. But I'm glad that we finally have connected online.
Yes, I think it's great because we missed the opportunity of meeting each other. I was also traveling at that time. You were also traveling to Pakistan, so it was just like a different time.
Yep,
So how is it
absolutely.
going now? Like, what is the situation in the UK, and like how are you coping up with it?
So things are opening up here. The government is kind of encouraging people to work, but if you can work from home, that's encouraged as well. They're slowly kind of opening things up and making them more accessible, but I don't know, it just feels too sudden for me. So
Yeah.
I'm just at home and self-isolating. I can work from home and I can, take these social distancing measures. So I'm just taking all the precautions I can. There's no cure for this yet. And I know in Pakistan
Was taken off, and now like it's kind of out of hand because once the office is open, the market's open, the bazaars open, then it's very difficult for the government and everybody to tell people to stay at home. So it's just like, I think it's an individual effort we have to make by staying at home and by doing things at home. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So do
No,
you
inshallah, I
think
hope everything just goes back to normal, and that actually, I know in Pakistan, the poor people tend to suffer the most. So I really hope that, there's, some sort of, kind of food and these things being
yeah,
provided to them, and, shelter and these kind of things.
I think that was the first reason why the lockdown was taken off, because people couldn't stay at home and
Have
just
a
like
living, yeah, like,
sit without their jobs and work. That was the first reason. I think everybody was really wanting to work because it's very difficult to survive
yeah.
otherwise. So you've been doing a lot of Zoom sessions, and you've been talking to a lot of people. I'm glad. I've been um, seeing your updates and all. So do you think that because your work is already about home, do you think it's more relevant now? Do you think staying at home and just kind of spending time in a space, does that contribute to what
Yes,
your
absolutely. It does. It by artists in Pakistan that I really like the work of. Arish Zubair, one of my really good friends, and
yeah,
Omer Ghani, is how you say surname?
American?
Omer Ghani, lovely. And, even yourself, like you have a really good way of interviewing them. So I'm really enjoying those. But yeah, for me, I think because my work is all about kind of, it's inspired by my family album. It's inspired by women in the album. It's really inspired by looking at my own family history and exploring that. I always kind of searched for the places and the people in the pictures, if that was from my family in Pakistan, or if that was, just people like that, I'm connected to in the album, like family, friends, or vice, whatever. So for me to actually stay at home, it kind of made me just stop and reflect and look around me, and the kind of start of all my work is my mom. So, just spending time talking to her, and I'm hoping to conduct more like interviews with her and record her, and, just kind of understand her life more, because she migrated to the UK in 1982. So she has like her childhood in Pakistan, her upbringing in Pakistan, but then like she has her most of her life in the UK. So I want to get to know her experiences more, and yeah, just I think it's good in that sense that it's made me look at the subjects that are right in front of me and the artifacts and the objects in front of me, such as my archive, my kind of family album. But I also think it's nice to just stop, and I mean I really have always wanted to do a project of my home, like, and my kind of home in the UK, and because I think there's something really special in my own house. I've literally lived here since I was 3 years old, and I mean, looking at my mum's life and just me as a person who's always curious, and I'm always learning about different things and different cultures. It always makes me wonder, like, where my life will take me in the future, and should I be documenting where I am right now in my life? And I think it's just so important as a study for us as women, because there's not much representation on the Pakistani woman, or much of an insight in our lives, or those stories are not really told, or so that's specifically why I'm
especially with the diaspora that you're talking, representation of Muslim women in the UK. So do you still feel the lack of that representation now that you have worked on it, but you still kind of feel that there is this lack of, not a lot of people talking about it?
Yeah, I think definitely in the arts, I feel like there's a lack of representation on the British Pakistani and Muslim, but I think specifically the British Pakistani, I see the lack of representation of the British Pakistani women in media, whether that's in art galleries and art spaces. But I also think it's changing slowly. I mean, I love the work of artists in Pakistan. I've come across so many Pakistani female photographers, artists. Even in India, I've come across so many amazing, Indian artists, and I think it's very inspirational to me. And I feel like if there was that in our education, in our systems, or if there was mentors and tutors who are British and teaching that or promoting that kind of work, it would certainly really encourage people to explore identity more, and actually it would just benefit in adding to the archives and the kind of collections of museums. So I definitely think with steps it can be, improved and changed, but I think also there's definitely a lack of that representation, and representation matters, especially right now where we're having such a dialogue. It's so important to represent these people, their stories, their individualities. It really shows a sense of time and space. So certainly I think there is a need for that.
So do you think, like, where did you feel anywhere when you were traveling to Pakistan that this is the place that you belong? Because your work is very much family history, rooted in your family history, and you traveled to Pakistan, you were already in the process of looking at pictures and interviewing your mother and her childhood and how she spent
friends
her
and
life.
stuff.
So you were very connected with what had happened or what is happening and the representation of women. So when you were traveling to Pakistan, did you ever feel that this is where you belong, and this is what, there was this sense of longing that was kind of pulling you, Pakistan was trying to pull you towards it? Was there this feeling?
Yes, I think definitely. I mean, I went this time last year. I had just visited. I had so many expectations of the place. I was so excited. But I have to say, when I definitely don't see home there. Because my mom's family, they're all from Lahore. So when I went there, it was a culture shock, it's a fantastic place, Lahore is. I think it's an amazing place, and, there's always something going on in the streets, and there's always so many things going on within families as well, because I know that people tend to live, loads of families tend to live in one house. So there's so many stories, and actually I was very excited and keen to go, and I really wanted to get there and just explore things for my own self and see the place. But I definitely feel there was no connection to the place or the people. But this is a tricky one, because I felt very connected to my own history. I felt very connected to my grandparents. I've never got to meet my grandparents. They passed away. And I always was curious about them. And, I've always kind of longed their love and just wanted this kind of, these relations to be in my life. But they were always missing in the UK. So actually going back, I felt very close to my grandmother. And I felt as though I had met them. It was really strange. I went to the house that my mom grew up in, which was in, you would know, so Lakshmi Chowk. So I went to the kind of old houses, And the house that my mom lived in when she grew up, it was before the partition, it was a Hindu home. So there was like the kind of Diwali kind of cutout when you put the diya, like
Right.
that was in the architecture. And the architecture in Lahore is amazing, as you know. So yeah, so that kind of really made me feel connected to them, like their own, like their heritage, like their stories basically. And I felt like as though I'd met them.
So when you came to Pakistan, did you kind of end up in conversations where people were looking, like you were trying to dig in Pakistan, like the Pakistanis, the history that was connected with Pakistan. But when you went to Pakistan and you met your family, you met, like you said that a lot of people living in one home. And did you ever find yourself in a conversation where people were talking about the UK in the same context like you were talking about Pakistan? Do you think that there was a connection that, a part of family went to the UK in the 80s and, there is this, when younger people kind of like younger cousins, they grow up and they think, okay, now there is this conversation that I am going to go to UK because there's this family settled over there.
Yep.
There's this longing of, going to a different place. So did you really, did you feel that there was this identity or diaspora that was somewhere developing in this part of the family? About
so like a British identity.
Yeah.
So I think definitely in my family, people, they were kind of, they are quite keen and excited to see England and see what the place is like. But actually, funnily enough, when I visited like Karachi and all these kind of places, people had visited England and they had stayed here for a few years, and it was drastically different to how it was in Lahore. I felt like people were a lot more kind of relaxed there. They didn't really care if I was British or not. But I think in Lahore, there is this excitement and there's this thing that, it's probably going to be so much better than Pakistan. But, like looking at their lives and looking at how like my family in Pakistan live is such a calm and, relaxed lifestyle. There's none of that kind of, it's very hard to explain. But I feel like there's this kind of idea attached to if you have a certain amount of money or you have a certain amount of a big house or something, that's all attached to like happiness. But actually it's mum's brother's house or my mom's house, and it was just so relaxed, it was so calm that I had switched off my phone for like 40 days, which is, well, I'd switched off my social media for 40 days, a big deal for me. And it felt amazing. It felt so nice. I wasn't even tempted to go on my phone, and bas din aise guzar jate the, like they would just go by really quickly.
You speak very well Urdu.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you want to like mix it up, because you've probably got audience that is Pakistani, so I'm happy to mix. I prefer mixing English and Urdu. But when I was in Lahore, I thought my Urdu was great until I got to Lahore and people just didn't understand me. I think because mostly they speak Punjabi there.
Yeah. And also like you just like people recognize you. Like when I also traveled to India, people would just like, it was very like surprising that we had just came from across the border and people were really like recognizing us that, oh, you're from Pakistan, and we were like, how do you know this?
That is crazy. I mean, did you go, where did you go in India?
I went to Lucknow, but we crossed the border by foot. We were students. We were very young.
Wow, that is awesome. I went to the border and that was my dream. I was like, imagine just crossing over to the India side.
So we crossed by foot. So we stayed a while in Amritsar to see the Golden Temple, and then and then we stayed in Lucknow. Then we went to Delhi, we went to Agra. So it was like a big deal when we were kids. And I just wish if we could, the visa thing can really be, like a little
easier,
so we could at least, like, I want to see the Golden Temple again. So but
I know, it looks amazing. It looks so beautiful, and I think Amritsar as well. It's so similar to Lahore. It's crazy, but I think it's there. You know, there's so many beautiful places in India that that actually they're within India,
connected.
and I think it's so. I mean, we were going to touch on the topic of history, but I think South Asia has such an amazing history,
Rich,
and it's such a it's so rich, and it's such a complex place. Like the whole of it is like, I think in like as me as a British Pakistani, I underestimated how diverse it would be. You know, I just kind of thought, oh, there's only one kind of Pakistani. That's because the only one kind of Pakistani we see here is people from Azad Kashmir that are predominantly settled in Britain. So for me to go back, I went to Makli, I went to Karachi, and there were so many different like ethnicities there. I met Parsi people. I've never met Parsi people in my life. So it's very intriguing, and I thought this is such an amazing like place, and people can write so much and be inspired in so many different ways. And I met people from Iran there, which was like they had ancestors who were reigning. It was so strange. Like you wouldn't expect that, I think, as an kind of like an outsider coming to Pakistan.
Also, I think as a photographer, you kind of, when you develop this this relationship with your camera, and you go through that photography process and you look at people through that lens, I think that is a completely different experience. Where if I think that I traveled to India when I was in school, where I don't think I had experienced or kind of explored the a camera. But now when I think of traveling somewhere, or if I think of going to India again, I think my perspective and my process of looking at something will completely change, because now I think that I will look at through a lens of, I will look at it as a photographer, and my experiences will change with that. And I think that photography, I also want to know what you think about it, how photography becomes so relevant, because it is I think it becomes about time, like Umair Ghani said in his session also.
Absolutely,
how it becomes about passing of time, it becomes about that moment, it becomes about the past and the future, and how it kind of unfolds so many things that will come in the future.
Absolutely.
So how do you, like, you're talking about, first of all, I would want to know, like, with this project, where do you think that history stands? Do you think that history is very, very important? And do you think that history is important when your project had started, or you were already very interested and it kind of led you in the project or something?
Yep, I think, I mean, well, firstly, Umair hit the nail on the head. Honestly, what he said was just so amazing. I feel like it's so relevant. I mean, I would recommend you all to go and watch Umair Ghani. I think even if you're not even into photography, all you need to do is just listen to him, because his way of presenting photographs as evidence, all of that, we learned that in photography, and I think how he articulated was beautiful. So I think definitely a lot of my work, in fact, is like, it's inspired by historical things that have personally happened in our family. So the life of my grandmother, I've got a project which is self-portraits of myself in my mother's clothes, and I've basically depicted her identity in Britain when she first came, and I specifically chose these clothes for her wedding. My nano had got them for her, and my mom has still kept them all these years. It's been 35 years since, and that's why I was like, right, I need to do something with this, because this is something so special to me. This is as close as I'm going to get. These materials are as close as I'm going to get to actually knowing my nano's choice, knowing my mum's choice at the time, and then to document that and to know about kind of how like our stories as women, and how we are kind of changing over times. Like obviously now British Pakistani women, we don't walk around with shalwar kameez, and obviously we can do if we want to. It doesn't really matter. But I'm saying, like, that we our clothing's changed, our language has changed. I'm speaking fluent English here as we move to places, and I think photography does an amazing job at kind of encapsulating that. So just kind of containing all that information in one image, and and there's just so many, I think, within photographs, within my photographs, I like to bring in a lot of signs and symbols that relate to certain moments and to certain kind of stories, whether that is bringing in something that's quite symbolic. So whether that's kind of using mirrors in my images, or using certain patterns or prints that remind me of a certain time, or kind of tell a certain story. That is what I like to bring in my work, and I think that photography does a very nice way in kind of encapsulating all that information. So yeah, I mean, there's a I think there's a special relationship between like my work and from what I know historically, and I'm still learning so much. I think now my curiosity it's becoming even more obsessive. I'm expanding it to South Asia now. I'm looking at Indian art, and I'm looking at, you know, for painted photographs, you know, that were done in the past, and loads of different things. And the more I'm discovering, the more it makes you kind of, it just brings in so many different cultural traditions from all over South Asia.
So like earlier, like you said that you are trying to kind of interview your mother and staying at home and looking at the belongings and the pictures. And that is a very like a research based kind of process, you know, that you kind of interview, then you write stuff, and that's a process, and like archiving stuff. But on the other hand, you also use abstract direction, you're talking about science, you're also talking about symbols and mirrors and everything. So how do you kind of, do you build up strategies, or do you just listen to your heart? Do you follow your emotion? How do you kind of think that this is a point where you have to overlap these things or overlap these strategies, where at one side you're interviewing and you're archiving and it's very research based, and you can use that otherwise also, like you can use that as a research project also, but on the other hand you're also using very symbolic elements. So how do you kind of overlap these in your process, like when you're working on a project? How do you think that, okay, at this point this is important, and at this point this is the visual result that you're thinking of? Like, what is the process of that?
I think definitely, like, I try to document all my kind of personal experiences. A lot of my work is based on, you know, how you know, it's all based on my own identity and where I feel I'm placed. You know, I do think that larger community, I do also think that everybody has their own experiences, and that is something that can probably touch many hearts, whether they are Pakistani or not, or, you know, whatever ethnicity they are. So I think in terms of like your question, I think definitely it's all based on my personal experiences and how I want to represent myself, but also I'm quite sensitive to how personal I get, because I know that work, you know, it's so personal to the extent that I don't want that to represent like everything about me in a way. It's very hard to explain. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So I think I have really, I didn't actually realize this. There was this film that we had screened at Tasweerghar, and this boy had made this film about his family. So I'm a bit conscious for the screening, and I was like, why? And this is I think 4 or 5 years back when we had started Tasweerghar. So I was like, why are you conscious? It's a great movie, it's a great film, we're going to screen it, everybody's going to love it. And later now, when I started working on my family and my family history, and I memories, I was like, okay, now I realize this, because it also it is also about this mystery, because that kind of makes it very romantic, that this is about you, but this is not about you entirely, because it's about your family, it's about people who you are with, people you've spent time with, your experiences. And I think somewhere as a photographer, you also kind of have this, I wouldn't say scared, but I think
you're
you
more
want to
sensitive to certain things.
sensitive, and you want to take this responsibility that you're talking about a lot of other people, not only
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
because
yeah,
I think in projects like these, we, like, if I talk about myself, I would say that it is about me, but then it is about all the people or all the experiences that make
yeah.
me who I am, right? So I think that somewhere we're very sensitive towards this issue, that we wouldn't want to say, okay, all
Yeah,
of this is for, uh, becomes a more relevant thing to this also, that it is closer to reality. It does give you
yeah,
a visual that is very close to reality, but it also kind of hides something, which you can, how can I say, there is this romance or mystery that is hidden somewhere, and I think that as an
absolutely.
artist or as a very emotional person, you can get to see what the artist has tried to do. So I think it's a very interesting collaboration
It
between
is, yeah. And you like you said, you have to be sensitive, because when you represent, you don't want to misrepresent. And I think it's also easy to, I think specifically when when you're used to kind of looking and studying at Western photography, you know, from what we're taught, because I did photography at university, and from what we always kind of, when I kind of study books and stuff, it's very easy to kind of put a Western spectacle on and look at, you know, because when I went to Pakistan, there was, you know, to some extent, I was looking at certain things with kind of like the Western eye, when I had to realize, wait, this is my culture, this is my community. I should know what this refers to and what this relates to. And it's actually quite hard to do that, to translate that in your images and not let anybody represent that for another thing. I think especially when you're storytelling in your images and you have a specific narrative, you don't want people to misrepresent it or narrate it differently. So I think that can be quite tricky as well. But I think definitely family and putting yourself in that frame and that kind of in the image, you have a lot of pressure, and that is one of the
yeah
biggest challenges when you're
yeah
representing your own self.
yeah. So, and especially when I think, like, when you travel to Pakistan, a lot of people might be looking at you as British, though you did not want to look at, you kind of stepped back and said, no, this is my culture, I am a Pakistani, I'm here to experience this. But then if you're surrounded by people, or you're surrounded by this energy that, oh, she's an outsider, or she's not from here, then I think it kind of builds more pressure, because you don't want to fall into that. You want to
Yeah,
step back
yeah,
and you want to look at it as you're. So because you talked about going to university and studying photography, and I've been really looking for people who I can talk to about studying photography, because in Pakistan we lack this, and in Pakistan we don't really have good serious courses for photography.
yeah.
And if there are any courses, there are short courses that you can do, like electives in universities, or 3-month courses, 6-month courses. Some I have seen are funded by the government, some are in private universities. But you having a degree in photography, I just want people to know how it is internationally, how photography is taken as a serious medium in institutes, and what is the kind of process that you go through when you're studying photography.
I think definitely in Pakistan, Tasweerghar is probably the only space that I came across in Lahore which actually took photography seriously, and as in to my kind of serious, basically, not commercial serious, or seriously in terms of like it's so photography. It's Tasweerghar sees photography as an artistic form, whereas in Pakistan I noticed and I spoke to certain photographers there, mature photographers, that told me they have, you know, they've been so thoughtful in this process, they've presented it in such a thoughtful way, but nobody has seen the value in it, and nobody's kind of seen this as something so serious, like, you know, they've just not taken it seriously. So I think that is quite a shame, really, because it's very it's not very progressive, I think, to think that. But I think in the UK, thankfully, we have that opportunity where we can, you know, show work artistically, and you do get a lot of kind of situations where, you know, you get kind of different types of photography. You get like commercial, you get artistic, and you get, so that I think is, there is that segregation here. My course at university was started off very commercial, to be honest, and I did nothing relating to my own kind of like my own kind of ethnical, like looking at family history and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, so it was only until my final year I started to do, you know, I started to explore more about my heritage, my history. I did do a photography A-level, which is like the qualification you do at college. So I did an A-level in photography, and my teacher in that at the college was amazing. She was so full of energy, and she really taught me to just go and do whatever the hell I want to do. If I want to photograph, you know, different kinds of hairstyles, go and do that.
Travel Pakistan,
she was just like, do whatever you want to do. Just know that this is, you know, you got to take it serious. Like, just be passionate in whatever you want to do. That's what she taught. And I think with art and photography, you can't really teach it. You can set a foundation for people, but you can't tell them like, okay, this is how to do this. And, you know, you have to creatively think about how you can create ideas and create art. So I think at university I really lacked that foundation, because my course was just not set out like that. It was, you know, I was the only British Pakistani Muslim girl in my class, so I felt like nobody was really, I didn't have the tutors there at university, and I think this is still a problem in the UK, where there's lack of diversity in organizations. And it wasn't only until my final year where we had a change of department, where things started to be a bit more strategic and a bit more, you know, voices started to get heard a bit more. And I had female mentors and tutors that I worked with after university, and you know, that really developed me as a practitioner. But before that, I think I just didn't have that confidence, you know. So I think although you say in Pakistan there's these issues where they're not supported and there's not that foundation there, I still think in the UK there are still, for I think especially photographers that are Black, Asian, Arab, and, you know, come from ethnic minority backgrounds, there still is that lack of, in my time anyway, I say my time, that was 2 years ago, but I just feel like there's not that kind of not just support, but that kind of conversation, that dialogue. Or maybe it was just my university, because I met people from different universities and I just think, wow, like, how are they so equipped so well?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think it is encouraging though, when you get to meet the right people in the photography industry. You get to meet people who are, you know, very supportive, very encouraging, and I like that there's a community here. And I think that with Tasweerghar, you've got the similar kind of community in Lahore, because I know Arish has talked about you guys as well. And I think it's so important to have that, because through that support, you're able to really kind of facilitate each other, encourage each other. So that's very good.
Yeah, that's actually I was not familiar with the scenario that you have put, like you know, the lack of voices and being heard and all of that. But I think that in also, like, I think in Pakistan, a lot of people have done a lot of work, but they were not really recognized in that way, like you said. And earlier when you see, it does somewhere make sense, because we could see that there were no platforms. There were, before social media, you can understand that there were a lot of people working in photojournalism and street photography.
There's not many funding opportunities as well, because a lot of places, they exclude Pakistan, which is, you know, a real shame, to be honest, because I mean, everything has its own reason, but I found it quite frustrating. I mean, I don't know if you've connected with Chirag Waskar online. So he's very well educated in kind of misrepresentation that certain organizations like photography organizations do. So I love seeing his tweets about this this kind of misrepresentation that goes on in, for instance, Nat Geo. So them getting photographers, sending them to Pakistan and India and showing poverty or whatever it is, it's totally done wrong. And I guess it's the same with Africa and, you know, these kind of, you know, countries where they won't necessarily get photographers from those countries, but they will send, like, you know, other photographers to these places, and then those places are completely represented wrong. There's so many images that are, you know, just make India and Pakistan look like these garib mulk, you know, like this really poor places, you know, and these countries have richness, they have a culture, you know. When I went to Karachi and Lahore, in some parts of Lahore, I got to meet some really, you know, people that had, you know, they were more westernized than people in British Pakistanis. And that was like, wow, like, you know, I went to Olam Media. I don't know if you, you know, so I went to that space and I met so many, you know, people with really innovative ideas and very progressive individuals, you know, and I felt like I was way ahead of time when I met them, because they have so many, you know, the expressions and everything, views and their perspective on even Pakistani politics and stuff was so ahead. And I think I think that's so important, like, honestly, in Pakistan, to encourage these spaces and generate new ideas and I know in Pakistan there's this is becoming a bit of a, like, Pakistan this, Pakistan that. No, I feel like in Pakistan there's also a bit of if you have the money, if you come from quite elite backgrounds, you're able to put up shows and do things, which I think I think it's, again, it's those people just getting opportunities from governments or grants or whatever. But I mean, I met so many talented young people there, people that had just come out of university, and I met them at certain openings and events, and I really, really liked how talented they were, but it was kind of sad that they didn't really have any opportunities lined up.
I was coming to the grant thing, that that's true that over here a lot of photographers don't really get, there's no grant culture basically, that you are funded for a project. And I think that is where we start to understand that where does photography stand as a medium, because and it's not only about photography, I think it's about all the art mediums. Even if you talk about theater and performance,
absolutely,
and other mediums, I think it's even poetry. Like, we sometimes have poetry sessions at the Tasweerghar, like now, so it's a lockdown situation, but we have these music events and poetry events, and I think it's very hard to get sponsors and get grants to do something that you're very passionate about. And I think that it kind of demotivates people who have been doing good work for a while, or who even want to start. Because I think in Pakistan, I've seen a lot of people, young people, trying to get cameras, or taking cameras on rent, or taking cameras from their universities. And I think universities do give you this opportunity that, okay, we have a studio, we have your equipment, you can take this from us and you can develop a project. But I think if you see it on a broader level, you don't really get any grants or scholarships, or to develop a certain kind of project that can go further. Because I think that is also that also kind of doesn't give an artist the freedom to continue doing what he's doing. Because I've seen so many people doing very serious photography and then kind of taking it into, I think, social media blogging. You know, it's like an everyday thing, which isn't a bad thing, I'm saying, but I'm just saying that
but
you
have to, it should have its own.
You have to sustain, and you have to, even if you look at your camera equipments and all, I think you have to kind of continue investing into that. So it because of the grants and because of all of that, I think we lose really good work, and we lose people who are passionate about their work also, it's very demotivating. So we don't really have a grant culture, the scholarships, and in institutes we don't really have photography as a degree program. And I think that I've been like I said earlier, I've been really looking for people who I can talk to in terms of degree programs, because in Pakistan, I think it's been 5 years to Tasweerghar, and we still don't see people coming in talking about photography in terms of theory, and photography in terms of research or archiving. So how do you look at it? Like, in terms of theory, do you think that theory kind of played a role in your projects, or what was happening around you? And do you think that research and theory of photography stands somewhere? Do you think it's important?
Well, I think you definitely have, you've seen a place that you need to explore at the Tasweerghar, and I think that it's a good place to start, or it's a good place to definitely have people that engage with theories and things like that a lot more. I think for me, definitely, like I said, my first 2 years at university, it wasn't really monitored. Nothing was like, I'll write this essay and do this, like nothing was really monitored. And in final year, you obviously have to do a dissertation. You have to provide, lots of research and information, things like that. But I think after university, I received a lot of mentoring from independent, people, organizations. So Grain Photography Hub is one of the people that I worked with as soon as I left university. And they mentored me. And I think mentorship is very important, because sometimes for me, like I like reading, but I don't love it. So, it's one of those things, like as artists, some of us were not really, we are interested and engaged in what our practice is about. But sometimes I like to learn through video, through, face-to-face meeting, through audio. I like to learn that way. So for me, those kind of interactions with like being mentored specifically by Nicholas Shipley, who you've been introduced to, really kind of helped me step into exploring theory and history, and exploring more broader subjects within the things I'm interested in. But yeah, I mean, I think certainly, I just have a collection of photo books. I still collect loads of photo books, and I still love to speak to photographers about what their practice is about. And actually, before it was just photographers in the UK, but now I've come across photographers in India, Pakistan, and even Kashmir. And I just think this is amazing, to be able to speak to these people, and their voices aren't heard. Like, they don't really have a platform to share this information. They don't have massive following on social media, but I love talking to them because I get so inspired. And I think you should be in some place, you should be in a gallery, you should be somewhere. I think the opportunities are certainly slightly starting to open up now for South Asia, but it's still nowhere as close as to what, is for other parts of the world. If you're in Europe or in all these other places, you have so many other opportunities, and even in the UK. So I think they definitely should open that up to Pakistanis.
I think now this virtual meetings, I think this might contribute to what is happening, because now everything is going to happen virtually, and I think photography has a greater chance now, because you can just post your portfolios, you can interact with people virtually, because this is the new normal. So I think we have to live with it now.
Some straight, like, it's really nice because photography works on this platform, we can actually show our images. Like when I had my Zoom call, my photos look so nice on the screen, and like before, when you have to present it like in person, you have to have a PowerPoint up. The wall is probably crusty, and you have to go through the different pictures on the wall, and the projection of the images is not that nice. But I think it works quite nicely for photography. This does.
I did see some of your pictures that you posted on your story. But I think I was too late to join in, because I didn't know that you, like, this is a different thing. Like, I was looking at your your Zoom conversations, and also the ones that the Grain Projects had posted, and they had a booking tab that you have to book for that, right? So like I think in Pakistan we don't really have that, and I think
I gathered. Yeah, I gathered.
Yeah. So
because I know with you, like, obviously live works, doesn't it? Because people just need to open up an app and just join the conversation. But I think I think it will be different in Pakistan, but I think it's you know, if people are serious, they would, you know, look at other avenues, Skype or whatever it is. I mean, it's such a growing thing. People are saying Urdu mein baat karo.
Angrez. Anyways, so I see a lot of people working on family and history. Like now in contemporary art, a lot of people are looking back at their heritage and their history and their families. And now you have this heritage DNA ethnic test also that you can do and find out, you know, the results and all. So
I've actually done mine. I got excited and I was like, I'm gonna just do it.
Oh my god,
I made my dad and mom do it as well. I was like, I have to. Have you done it? It's like a DNA test.
No, I have to because I've seen the process, but I was like, because I have to send it to some other country for it because I can't do it in Pakistan. Yeah, that's why I have this in mind, but I haven't done it.
Oh. Okay, no, hopefully you get to do it soon. But I've sent mine off, so hopefully when I get the results, I made my mom and dad do it because my mom and dad like, ye kya hai? I don't want to do this. I'm like, no, you have to do it. I need to know. They don't. Yeah,
I mean, excited by listening to this.
Yeah, my mum's mum was born in Kashmir in Srinagar. And then she came to Amritsar, and then like with her mom, because her father died at a young age, so my grandmother and her mother came to Amritsar, and then the partition happened, so they had to come over to the other side. And then my mum's dad's family was also kind of the same, from Srinagar, then came to Amritsar to Lahore. And then for my dad's side, I'm not particularly sure, but I think it's also same. We are all Kashmiri, like by ethnicity, from Srinagar. Oh, are you? No wonder you look it. You look it.
We need to talk about so many things now.
Yeah. Kashmiri, we all look quite similar.
Yeah.
I'd love to learn the language as well, like the Hosher language.
Yeah, I've not done that. I think I'm too into my family tree right now, and my family tree, and I actually fell into the partition time, the partition chapter, and then I started to right now I'm in this phase where I'm trying to document places and spaces, the migration that happened, and which houses they were allotted, where were the partition camps they were staying in, the camps which were, you know, in different places when the partition happened. And so basically it's now about memory and space. So it did start with the idea of home, like you also talk about home. It basically started with that, but then I started to interview my grandfather and my relatives. Yeah, and they started talking about their home, but they were talking about before partition. And then I had to read and had to understand what really happened. And one is, you know, this documented history, and you know, in politics and books and newspapers, when you read about partition, but then you have to really understand the emotional connection people had with partition, and they had to leave their homes. So I really got into what their concept of home was, and they had to leave it and then had to come here and then settle down, and they had to make another home in another country.
So many things. This is what I mean, like you just talking about your personal experience. You won't see that in a book about partition. You know, people will they'll have general information, but there's so many stories that my mom's told me about, you know, how she had family friends that moved to when they had come from India to Pakistan. In the house they lived in, underground, they kind of were going to they were going to rebuild the house, so they started to dig underground, and they found like a gold
I know.
murti, like, you know, the Hindu god, like they had a gold Hindu god, and I just thought that's crazy, you know. And I think there were so many probably things like that where people had to just leave because that is so sentimental, that's so special.
Yeah.
You know, that's a god to them, and it's gold as well. So you know, there's so much value to that, and not just emotional but sentimental, and you know, money like value as well.
This exactly happened when my family migrated, but they found a gold dechki.
Wow.
So
it's the jackpot, but it's not funny. I mean, it's just something that is
and it's very similar, like the scenario and the experience is very similar. Like your family's experience and my family experience is very close. It's very it's the same actually, that you know, they migrated, they were somewhere else, they were living in a different place, and they found something that belonged to somebody who lived in that place earlier. So so I see a lot of people, like we need to talk about so many other things now, but I think like I see a lot of people, a lot of artists and writers talking about nostalgia. See this, that you know, like right now with all this social media, and first of all, do you feel this pressure that everybody's working on it and you are also working on it? And secondly, like now with social media and everything, we have this freedom of choosing who we are, and we have this freedom of being who we are and leave so many things behind us and move forward with new things. But why do you think that artists are still carrying this baggage of who they were before and trying to connect what had happened earlier? Like how do you think that works generally and for you also?
I think definitely there's no pressure. I mean, I know a lot of people are exploring like their family history, they're kind of photographing their family members or the home. I think there's no pressure because I feel like everyone's story is different. Everyone has their own kind of experience, I guess, and their own thing that they're trying to tell from those pictures. So I don't feel any pressure in that way, but I feel like the way things are moving, they definitely are, you know, it's time for change. So I think styles, a lot of mental things that are going to change about themselves, a lot of physical things are changing about themselves. So I think it's a time for change, and it's definitely so your last bit of the question was on nostalgia. Just repeat that last bit. So
so a lot of people are working on like similar topics, you know. So right now we have this freedom of choosing who we are and just be who we are and move forward with things and leave a lot of things behind us. But why do you think that artists, or generally, and you also, why do they still carry this baggage of being something that of connecting with something that has happened earlier? Like they can artists can completely give up on who they were and live in this time.
No, sorry. So I was just going to conclude that bit. So obviously we're having right now a time of change. So I feel like a lot of people are, you know, making those small steps or, you know, changing in any way they can. But I think definitely as artists, we tend to study the things that we photograph a lot, like to a very obsessive nature. You know, for me anyway, I really study, you know, my album. I really study the clothing, the food, the culture,
fashion,
the language. I think, fashion as well. The language, definitely. I think the language is something that I can't really show, but I know it's always there, like it's always present. And, you know, laughing about the whole speaking Urdu, but my Punjabi, I can speak Punjabi, but it's so tutti bhaji. So you don't want to go there, but,
great.
but like for Urdu, like I feel so fluent at speaking at it. But when I kind of speak to like younger kids in the family, they can't speak Urdu, and they can't, like, Punjabi to them is like, what are you saying, mom?
Yeah.
My mom speaks Punjabi Urdu with them, and it's very interesting how we have these changes in generations. that's why for me as an artist, I really study the things, you know, that I'm interested in, and I kind of I try my best to depict them in the best way I can, or in the way that I feel fits me. But I think, yeah, normal people, they just don't really think much about these things. Like, you know, when I speak to my parents about the family history, or about, you know, when I speak to my dad, when he grew up in the UK, he came when he was 6 years old, so he grew up in the UK. His Urdu and Punjabi is very bad as well, but he can still speak it. And again, like when I ask him questions, it's completely, you know, to him, he doesn't take me seriously. He's like, why are you asking me this? Why do you want to know about this? It's, you know, they don't see the seriousness in it. But I feel like that's something that a lot of people in our culture do. Like the younger generation are so passionate about documenting and, you know, even paying respect to the art that's come before us. So Pakistani cinema, then like the older cinema that came, you know, Noor Jahan, all these kind of artists that came, you know, in the 60s, 70s, when Pakistan was very much at its peak in you know, media and, you know, in music, in film industry. The younger generation are so much more passionate in putting these things forward, whereas the olders are just like, why are you bothered about
up? So I'm going to cut this and call again, and yeah, and then we can take questions and wind up.
Will these comments get saved, or
yeah,
do you think it's worth us noting any questions?
I'll be recording all these when I put them up, but I think right now I have to put this because hello,
hi.
So the video will be posted a bit, it's going to take a little bit of time, but it's already posting once while we're doing this. Everyone can send in their questions, their comments. You have already heard Maryam talk about her practice and her interests. And in the meanwhile, I think I want to know a little about your trip to Pakistan. You have told a lot of things, but, you know, just like a fun fact or something. By that time, we can just wait for people to send in questions.
I can tell you something maybe interesting that from my visit. I think Lahore in itself, I just generally talk about Lahore. I think it's such a different place to the UK, in the sense that there's a lot of complex religion there, and I think in the UK we don't really see religion as like that kind of how to explain it. Like there was a lot of kind of like, there was some shrines that I visited, and there was a lot of kind of traditions and things that I came across that I don't think I would have never come across them in the UK. So that was very intriguing for me. I think that as a person who's just come to Pakistan for the first time, that was one thing that I was.
In the UK, don't you I don't know the dynamics of families in UK, Pakistani families in the UK, but like the rituals that you're saying, do you the practicing of rituals, what is the how can I say this, like,
I think if it, you know, like we have like khatams and milads, just depending on what kind of Muslim you are. But Jessica, like when you go to Data Darbar and these kind of shrines, and there's like fakirs there, is that what you call them? Like beggars, and you know, you have you have graves there that you visit, and this kind of, you know, it's different. We don't have that here. We don't have like actual shrines and these kind of places you'd go to and, you know, you'd go and see. I mean, of course, that's because maybe we don't actually have like, you know, just Data Darbar Jab Jati, or there's like people that are there that are holy and saints to people. So obviously that is something that they've come from that land, and obviously they're buried there.
Mm.
But here we don't have that. So that was very strange for me. And then also like getting meat and then throwing it in the water, and that on Ravi River Bridge, that was strange. I was like, what is this?
Doing what?
Ravi River Bridge. Have you been there?
Yeah,
To the
Ravi.
Ravi?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like poor people there that like they are giving like these bags of stuff, and then you throw it in the water.
Langar dena and rice.
Yeah, all that stuff. It was just, I don't know the word for it, but it was very new to me, and I was just like, what is this stuff, like what's going on?
Yeah, I think because like we talked earlier, that's very rich, like this part, like in it's very extensive.
Complex.
Yeah, very complex. Somewhere they're very exaggerated by people also, you know, like even in a religion or in a culture, you see that, you know, somewhere a group of people will believe in a certain kind of practicing a ritual, but the other group of people will think that no, this has to be, you know, to another level. They will take it to another level. So I think it's different for different people, but it's very complex. Like you said, Data Darbar, when you go to Data Darbar, it's not only that you're going to that place, it's also like chadar chadhana and, you know, giving food to the people.
There's a lot of rituals and stuff involved.
It's like a whole, so it's not very, like, it's not very simple that you just go and come back, and there's a lot of layers to that. And I think
absolutely
that kind of complexes with the time also, that the time that has passed for so many years and so many, because, you know, sometimes I think that all these now when we talk about identity and we talk about the movements that are happening, I kind of think that, especially talking about Pakistan, it has been through such political and religious shifts that, you know, it has to, the problems are different and the solutions will be also very different. So I think with passing of time, it has gone through a lot of different shifts, and it's very difficult to say that it can be simple. It's very complex.
I think that's what makes Lahore, like, I mean, I'm glad I got to go Lahore first, because there was a lot of things that I thought were completely new to my eyes. In fact, my mother went after 35, like after so many years. I think it was 23 or 24 years my mum went as well. And when she went, she was like, this is nothing like how it was when I left. So it's completely changed. And she's grown up, you know, in really good times where a lot of the inner city Lahore, there were still Havelis there and stuff like that. Way, and, you know, her life there, and it was nothing like, when I got there, it was nothing like that.
And also with the architecture changing and the city kind of expanding, and I think when the metro was being built, a lot of people couldn't really accept that change, because the whole city was changing and the public transport was going to change, and, you know, it was like there's going to be a bridge, and, you know, like people wouldn't accept that this is going to happen, because it was changing the whole feeling of that city. So I would love
to get to know more about the changes and when that happened and who was around that time. Were you quite young, or?
Not when, but I remember a lot of things, because I was born here, I was brought up here. I lived mostly in the Gulberg side, which was, when we were young, it was like the center of the city. And then I also remember when the Kalma Chowk, they were changing the Kalma Chowk, and the Kalma Chowk tower was taken off, and it was also a moment for all, like, everyone, for us, because our generation, which was, I think, at that time we couldn't understand that the city is going to change. We only understood that the Kalma Chowk won't be there, and we didn't understand that there's going to be a bridge and the dynamics will change. We didn't understand that, but I think much later when we travel to that part of the city, we say, oh, I mean, like, yahan pe ye होता था, ऐसे होता था. And I think sometimes...
Is that old city?
Yeah, no, it's in Gulberg. It's not
Because you've got two Gulbergs. You've got a new Gulberg and you've got an old Gulberg, right?
This Gulberg 3.
Okay, sorry, that's what you call them, 1, 2, and 3. I remember.
Yeah, it's 1, 2, 3, but it's Gulberg. So I don't know if you remember Model Town, but it's right opposite to Model.
Yep.
Yeah,
okay.
So I think now...
I love the directions in Pakistan, especially in Lahore. Bus like aage se, left, right, and then you're there. And if that was me following that direction, I would be in a different place.
A lot of people say that this about Lahore. I don't know. Maybe I am from Lahore and I am familiar.
No, you're used to it. You're used to it. Honestly, if you have to drive in Lahore, or like even like telling my driver like where to go and what to do, he wouldn't get it if I told him. So I would just be like, okay, wait, let me just get you onto a phone call, and then he would connect me to wherever.
I think a lot of people also take the canal as the direction, that you just have to go on the canal and just like follow the canal and you'll be there.
Actually, Lahore, like it's actually quite easy to navigate because you have different sections, and within those sections there's a lot of significant places. So for instance, you mentioned the canal and all that kind of stuff. But no, I mean, somebody mentioned about Nihari, which was funny.
Yeah.
Do you want to read the comments? So
yeah. Did you get to eat Nihari? Don't tell me you didn't.
Do you know, I even though like my family are all like Kashmiri, but they didn't like, I did not eat that much from outside. I think I did have grill once and I was very sick, so never again. What did you have? I had like tikka and grill, like.
Oh yeah. Tikka. Yeah.
So, and that was from outside, and no, I got really sick.
No, I think that's the thing when you're traveling and also when you're working, it's a little difficult.
Yeah, but I had like family friends that cooked for me, and the home cooked food was like amazing. It was nothing like, you know, what we get here. I think the food is so wholesome, like the ingredients are so organic there. There's this conflict between Lahore and Karachi. I went to both places and I love both of them. In fact, I would love to explore Pakistan a lot more. A lot of my friends are from Azad Kashmir in the UK, and I would love to go to Azad Kashmir, even to like up north, like Peshawar. And I have friends from Attock in the UK, one of my best friends from Attock. So I would love to go to all these places and see the cultural differences. Because, you know, Pakistan, it's such an amazing place. It's so diverse. It's full of like some interesting history. People from all kinds of ethnicities have settled there and have their own stories. But yeah, I mean, I would have loved to eat Nihari like from the street and all that. Because I've seen like, you know, like Mark Weens and all these bloggers. And there's a few Pakistani ones as well that I watch, food bloggers. Yeah. And they do a great job. But they're all usually men. And they can just turn up at places and, you know, they can just go and eat from wherever. But as for women, it's you have to be a bit careful.
No, I think like if you're I think maybe I am from Lahore and I'm very familiar with the city. I keep going to those places. People get to understand, okay, she comes here, she takes pictures, she's a photographer, she'll eat here. So I think it's not that difficult. We sometimes do think that it is, but I mean, like, the next time you're here, I can take you anywhere.
Yeah, I'm gonna hang out with you, Rabani. Now that you've said that, I'm gonna hang out with you.
Yeah, very good. Good to see the most talented Maryam. Keep
Thank you, Kashif.
The good work. Best of
I
luck.
actually met Kashif out in Lahore. He works for the Wall City of Lahore Authority. So I met him through that. Basically, we worked together. Basically, was there any questions on the last thing?
There were not questions. There were just comments.
Okay.
But once I upload the because I think they're recorded in that. So, and the live session was going off, so I couldn't stay for longer. So once we upload them, we can answer them on our
comments.
IGTV.
Yeah.
I'll go to Attock with you, Sahaba. Okay.
Those are my friends, so they
so cool.
They just commented.
No, I think once the lockdown is over, once this whole thing is over, the flights, you know, and whenever you plan to come to Pakistan, I can plan it for you. We can eat, We can meet people.
I'd love that,
Yeah.
honestly. The last time I came was just before lockdown, and it was such a, so awkward how, not so
Oh
awkward, but
yeah,
so
you came to
strange
Lahore
how,
Biennale for the Lahore
yeah, so
Biennale.
things have
Yeah.
changed so drastically, since well, just in the matter of a few months,
Few
the
months,
country went into
yes.
lockdown, and there is so much like uncertainty with the time, but hopefully inshallah it'll happen within good time. And the main
Inshallah.
thing is that we get back to normality with our lifestyles, but also with our health, because I know a lot of people are being affected by this. A lot of people I know have passed away, and
Yeah.
it's quite a tragic thing. So I hope that the people aren't affected so much in the countries that they're in.
I hope so. I hope this kind of it's very hard to say that this is going to be the new normal, because it's
Yeah.
a bit scary.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've just got a comment here. Would
Yeah.
be amazing for you to do a project focused on your family heritage, particularly the connection to Srinagar? Yes, I really, really, really want to do this. I think the more I'm getting more interested in my family history, I'm getting more and more interested in the places that my family or ancestors would have lived in. So Amritsar is one of them. Like, I'm dying
Yeah.
to go there because my grandparents were from there. And Srinagar is one of them, because obviously my nana was from there, my nana's mum was from there. So I think I am curious about this journey, but also not just for the sake of showing that I'm this and you're that. I think it's just to create a cultural understanding and to create a bit of a connection to my own history, which probably relates to a lot of South Asians, because a lot of South Asians, like, even if you speak to some of your friends in Lahore, their ancestors probably, or their grandparents probably lived in Lucknow, India,
Yeah.
or, wherever, Amritsar, in different parts of Punjab. I had a friend that her grandmother lived in Jalandhar. So, it's really interesting to see how complex our histories are. And even if we are in Pakistan, I know some people that, when I was in Karachi, I met lots of Pathans who had their families back in Peshawar or in parts of remote
Yes.
villages, and it just makes you wonder that this is a piece of history that isn't being documented, isn't being archived, and to kind of just develop that process of how we are always kind of moving from in different places as humans. Today you're in Pakistan, tomorrow you can be somewhere else. I actually met a Pakistani girl, and she ended up getting married. Like, after we met, she ended up getting married, and she's now moved to the Middle East. So she now lives there. So, it just makes you think that then her family, her kids will grow up there, then she'll have kids, they'll grow up somewhere else. So it's quite intriguing, and I think it's nice to document that process. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Is here.
I think when once it gets personalized, and I think when you really get into the emotions, what the experiences, like you had written that you're interested in the experiences of people. So I think, and the complexity of it, I think it becomes even more interesting, and it gives so many other layers to your own
Absolutely,
concern.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's the most interesting part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think let's wind up, and if you have any last thing to share with us, that would be great. If you have anything.
I think it's what I just wanted to conclude on is I think in this current time, it's a lot of, like, I mean, when I kind of when lockdown happened, I was quite productive. I was quite motivated. I wanted to go and like read stuff and learn more about what I'm interested in. And then I kind of went downhill a bit. I started to basically get my mind off photography and art and all this kind of stuff, and then I went back to it. And I think I've got a few artist friends that are in the same stage where they aren't feeling very creative and they feel very stuck, and I think it's very easy to feel quite closed at this moment in time, and feel quite artistically dead. But I think it's normal. Don't feel pressured or under stress and anxious in these times. I know people that aren't even artists that are quite anxious in this current time. And I think it's important to just breathe, relax, do all the things you like to do, go on walks, you know, and just start fresh when your mind feels ready, because I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves and on our minds, and you know, and we even if you're students, you know, students are stressed out about dissertation and putting in things, and I think it's very easy to feel in like get in that pressure and just delve into that pressure, but really what you want to do is just be strong, you know, learn in other ways, watch movies or do something that you're going to really feel engaged in.
Also inspiration, because the inspiration is not coming from anywhere, you know. A lot of people are dependent on going out and looking at things, spending time with nature or people, interacting with people, you know, and then they get inspired. But now, because that has kind of, you know, like you said, that artistically dead, because that is, there are no opportunities, such opportunities that you can go out and, you know, talk to people and meet people, or just go for activities, different activities. So I think the inspiration has, we have to find inspiration in other things now.
So and I think when you take that time, to yourself, whether you're an artist or not, you can really start fresh and start to reconnect with those things. Like when I went brain dead for a bit and I stopped thinking about art and I thought I was a chef and all sorts, and मैं क्या क्या पका रही थी kitchen में, getting my skills for cooking on top, it made me actually feel more intrigued by, you know, my practice, and it started to make me think more openly and more broadly. So yeah, I think it's good to stop and then reconnect and just try and adjust to that situation. So yeah.
What kind of future projects are you working on? Will you venture out to capture more photography or migration within Pakistan? As like you said, it's quite sad this is not captured or documented, like you said.
Should we do the first question? So the first question was, what kind of future projects are you working on? I'm actually working, so my most current project is about, it's actually a project which I'm working on with the Midlands Arts Centre in Birmingham. So from my first visit to Pakistan, I started documenting images that connected me to my my ancestors and my grandparents, ultimately mainly my grandparents basically. So I decided to create a project from that, and I have been working on that since last year, June, and now I've just kind of finished the documenting of it. I mean, it's still adjusting, it's still adding to that, but the project is basically based around my mum going to Pakistan and me in all of that. So my connection and where I am in all of this. And also I've kind of embedded inside it what my alternate life would have been like if I had stayed in Pakistan. Because I had so many like girls around my age, I just couldn't help but think I could have been that girl, you know. So yeah, so that's what I'm working on right now. And then the next question was, will you venture out to capture more photography of migration within Pakistan? Yeah, I think I would, but also I would love to give the opportunity to people from Pakistan. You know, I met people in Karachi, in different parts of Pakistan that they come from different parts. So there's photographers in Karachi or near Karachi that are from Balochistan and all these places, but I'd love them to have the opportunity to document that place. My experience is my personal, like, as in it's me going to Pakistan for the first time as a 24-year-old British girl, and it's based around all my kind of my personal stories, my memories, my upbringing, my family album, and the you know, the things that are centered around my my family. So the way we dress, the clothing, you know, all these kind of things that only relate to me and not necessarily other Pakistanis. So like when I said I have friends from Azad Kashmir in the UK, a lot of them can't relate to some of the stuff that I've got in my album, and that's normal. And there's a lot of stuff that I can't relate in their albums. But that's the beauty of it, how we can connect through photography, we can tell these stories through photography, and we can share our own voice. So I think definitely, but I also think it's important for women to have that opportunity. You know, it's all nice to have men in the photographing these amazing subjects, but I think work I've seen, like I was looking at an Indian photographer yesterday called Divyanta. I can never pronounce these names, it's just so bad, but
I'll also look up to these works.
Yeah, so I was looking at her work yesterday, and it's just remarkable how as a woman she's photographed such sensitive, such intimate subjects, you know, and that is something that I think women can do quite nicely, because we have a lot of interest in this stuff. We have a bit of a soft spot, especially in, I think, in Asian cultures. We love telling stories, we love narrating things to, you know, people, and I quite like that in women's photographs. But I mean, everyone can create some great work, and I think yeah, definitely I'd love to see that more.
We are looking forward to see your projects, and I'm really looking forward to talk to you again.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and so looking forward to your projects and talking to you again. And I think I'll be joining you on your Zoom calls if you have any coming in the future. And
Thank you.
let's see if we can come up with something more interesting and do something more often.
Yeah,
because this was great.
I love speaking to you. Yeah, I love speaking to you. Thank you so much for obviously giving me the opportunity
Thank
to
you.
with Tasweerghar, and hopefully